Welcome back here on TSL today. Happy Halloween, everybody. It's a Monday from the Corporate Research Center in Blacksburg, Virginia. I'm Giovanni Heater, joined once again by David Cunningham. We had a little bit of fun, David, talking Virginia Tech athletes compared to horror movies. Let's get back to a serious note here. Let's break down this Virginia Tech basketball schedule coming up on the men's side of things. Want to first ask you about the non-conference. Too easy, too hard, or just right when you compare it to last year, how the non-conference shook out? Some tough losses to teams like Xavier and Dayton, or is this kind of just right?
I think it's more of the just right. I think it'll be hard to tell. Like right now, it looks like this is a good non-conference schedule for Virginia Tech. They don't go on the road. Hokies don't go on the road at all in the non-conference schedule. Their first road game is in December against Boston College. Yeah. That's their second ACC game of the year. That's the first time they have a true road test. I like that they're going and playing Oklahoma State. I think that'll be a challenging matchup.
Yep.
The Charleston Classic, I think, will give them a little bit of a test. And I think Dayton coming to Castle Coliseum and Minnesota coming to Castle Coliseum for ACC Big Ten Challenge, those are probably their two biggest tests. I think it's good. I'm interested to see how it plays out. I think it might end up being a little too easy, honestly. Okay. But you also got to remember, you could have said, looking back on it, you could have said, yeah, Virginia Tech's non-conference schedule last year wasn't challenging enough. And Tech lost some games in that non-conference schedule. Tech could have been better. So I think for this group, it's probably a just right non-conference schedule because it's a little bit challenging. You've got a neutral site game in there, a couple, Charleston Classic in Brooklyn against Oklahoma State, but it's nothing too crazy. But you've also got a lot of games at home. That Dayton game, I've got that one marked down. I think it's going to be probably the most challenging game Virginia Tech plays up until that season opener in the ACC against North Carolina.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, David, 11 games in the non-conference this season. In previous years, sometimes it was 12. Obviously, when you add in more ACC games, that's what happens. Do you have this team going 11-0 in the non-conference, or do you think they drop a dud here or there and it turns out being like a 10-1 or a 9-2?
I think it'd probably be like a 9-2 if I had to guess.
Okay.
I mean, the Tech team, lost to Xavier, Memphis, and Dayton last year.
Right. Who were all ranked at the time
in the non-conference? Yeah, and they were all good teams. All games Tech could have won, but I think they're all games that Tech learned from. And I think that's the most important part is, there are so many new pieces for Mike Young in this group that they might not be perfect. And I don't expect them to be perfect, and I don't think they will be. But as long as they learn from it and continue to improve, I think playing Minnesota or Dayton or Oklahoma State or Penn State, those are going to be challenging games, and you need to continue to challenge yourself to get better. And, that experience Virginia Tech had up in Brooklyn last year where they got to play Xavier and Memphis, that probably helped them when they had to go back up to Brooklyn and play there, for the ACC championship in March. And turns out they ended up winning it. So I think as long as you continue to prepare yourself for it, it's a positive.
How do you feel about Virginia Tech? It's kind of interesting. Across the country, you see Louisville's playing exhibition games. Syracuse plays exhibition games. There's a handful of teams across the landscape of college basketball that open up their season with exhibitions games that don't count on their schedule. Usually they'll play 2 or 3 against a Division II level opponent just to kind of get their feet wet and hit the ground running a little bit before it starts to count. Do you think it's interesting that Virginia Tech does not participate in any exhibition matchups and they just get right into things?
Well, they do play a couple secret scrimmages.
Okay.
They played, Mike Young even told the media, they played a couple weekends ago, they played at Liberty, and,
right.
And then they played Richmond at home. So they're I mean, obviously, those aren't exhibitions where fans can go and watch.
Right.
I don't think it's weird. Virginia Tech's never really played exhibitions in the past. The one that they did play was for hurricane relief. I guess they played 2. They played at South Carolina one year for hurricane relief, and all the ticket proceeds went to that. And then they played at Liberty once, and both of those were under Buzz Williams.
Okay.
Mike Young has never really played exhibitions before, but scrimmages against in-state teams are normal, and so no, it doesn't surprise me at all. I think Tech probably got plenty of good stuff from playing Richmond and playing Liberty. Those are two teams. Yes, they're more mid majors, but they can be very challenging teams in across the country this year. Richmond obviously won an NCAA tournament game last year, and Liberty has one of the best shooters in the country, and Darius McGee, I think, is his name. So yeah, I think it's a pretty challenging. You don't want to challenge yourself too much, but you don't want to just like glide right into the non-conference. So I think they're doing it the right way.
So in the last handful of seasons, the first year that they did this thing, where they had it where you play an ACC team in your non-conference, basically the early ACC game. They played Clemson, who was ranked 24th in the country. That was 2 years ago. Virginia Tech won that game 66-60. That game was played in Castle Coliseum. Then last year, on December 4th, which is the same date as the UNC game this year, it was a Saturday though last year, blown out by Wake Forest. 80-61 was the final score of that one. This year, you got to play who is coming in as the number one team in the country in North Carolina. Just kind of your opinion on the early ACC game and really pulling the toughest card and getting the hardest team. Would you have liked to see Virginia Tech get some more ACC reps in before having to go against a juggernaut like the Tar Heels?
Yeah, I think that's the right answer. Right. I mean, last year Tech played at Duke in its second game of the ACC. And that was like right before Christmas, I think like right after exams ended. So December is always tough. You probably always want to play your most challenging opponents in January or February. I guess this is the one time Virginia Tech's can play North Carolina, right? So this is
right.
I think if you're Virginia Tech, you're licking your chops that they're coming to Castle Coliseum, and that'll be great, and it's a Sunday, and it'll be amped. The question is, will you have enough preparation? Will you be ready enough from all the games you played previously? I think that was kind of the problem with Wake Forest last year, right? It's one thing when you're playing them in the first game of the season like they did with Clemson. It's completely different when you're playing them like 10 games in and you've been playing some really bad non-conference teams, and then, okay, you throw in a Memphis or a Xavier, a Maryland. When the Wake Forest comes to town, and it's like, especially because that's the same week as Minnesota game, the ACC Big Ten Challenge is the Monday prior.
They do get like you said, they get a 6-day rest.
They get a break, but I'm curious to see if they're going to be ready enough just from they are ready to go toe-to-toe with the number one team in the country, not the conference. Just to, this North Carolina team is so good, and I don't know. We're going to see once North Carolina gets going how good the Tar Heels actually are. But one thing I do like is the big time non-conference games early, or just conference games. Period. It's become more common to see big time conference games. I think this is great. I think Virginia Tech, there's a chance Virginia Tech could be undefeated heading into that game, right? And it's a top 25 Virginia Tech team against, hosting number one North Carolina in Castle Coliseum.
Well, that would be fantastic.
That'd be great for us. Give us something to talk about.
Yeah.
But part of me is also like, I think teams probably need a little bit more time before they get into the conference schedule. But I do like that, and I think there needs to be more of it, more challenging non-conference games off the bat. That's a little bit different than this North Carolina game, obviously, because it's the ACC opener. But like, I would love Virginia Tech to open the season against, I would love like the ACC Big Ten Challenge to be like the season opener.
Yeah.
You open against a Minnesota team.
Gives some excitement too.
Yeah, because, college basketball doesn't usually have a lot of excitement on opening night. Usually it's, Virginia Tech playing Delaware State.
Right.
Virginia Tech's going to win by like 30 points.
Only the few juggernaut blue blood programs when they throw like Michigan State and Duke,
Kansas, or Gonzaga, Duke, or,
exactly.
Michigan State,
North Carolina, or whatever.
It's not as common anymore.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more of that, but I think, obviously, if you're Virginia Tech, you're probably sitting there going, man, can we play North Carolina at the start of February?
Right. No doubt about it. All right, so when you break down the ACC schedule, not terribly hard off the bat after the North Carolina game. You got Boston College. Wake Forest is going to be pretty decent ball club. Then you got Clemson, NC State, Syracuse, who's looking like they might have a tougher year. you don't have to play a Duke until the end of January. You don't have to play Virginia until towards the end of January on January 18th. Notre Dame's not all the way until February. Notre Dame looks like they could be good this year. The first time that you play Miami is January 31st. I mean, everything else, Florida State's not till March. Duke, again, is until the end of February. Everything else kind of shakes out favorably for Virginia Tech as far as you want those best teams towards the end of the season and not have to face them early. I mean, you start out with Boston College, Wake, Clemson, NC State, Syracuse. I think you take that.
Yeah, those are 5 pretty winnable games.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there's necessarily a stretch here where Virginia Tech, maybe the very end of the season. There aren't too many stretches where if you're Virginia Tech, you're looking at yourself going, man, like this is really tough. I mean, Duke, Syracuse, Miami, and Virginia, that stretch of 4 games at the end of January, early February, that's probably that stretch. And then Miami, Duke, Louisville, and Florida State in 4 straight. Those are probably the 2 main stretches.
Although Louisville just lost an exhibition yesterday.
to D2 Lenore run.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I do think, playing on the road in the ACC is never easy. But the fact that you're starting off with Boston College, Wake Forest, Clemson, NC State, Syracuse, those are 5 very, very, very winnable games. Now, the problem is in the past, Virginia Tech has kind of slipped up against those guys. Virginia Tech took care of business against Syracuse last year, but did not so against Boston College on the road.
True.
Against NC State once.
Wake.
Against Clemson once. Against Wake. Those are all games Virginia Tech lost or split last year. I don't think Virginia Tech won't beat any of those teams outright, I guess, except for Syracuse. So it's not like this is a game where you're going, yep, Virginia Tech's going to win by 15 and that's it. Like these are games Virginia Tech could lose, and that's kind of like playing every day in the ACC, right? Yeah. But it could be more difficult. And to your point, I think if you're Virginia Tech, you're going to take it. Like you don't play North Carolina, Duke back to back. Like last year, Virginia Tech was supposed to play North Carolina, I believe, coming right off of Christmas break, essentially. And it was supposed to be Duke, Carolina, Christmas break in between, and then the game got canceled and moved due to COVID, and it got pushed to a Monday. Like that would have been a really challenging stretch. I think this is a much more casual. I don't know if casual is the right word, but it's not. You're not playing any of the blue bloods. You're not playing a Miami, a Virginia, a Duke, a Florida State, a Notre Dame. I think that is good. Gets the team a chance to get its feet under them, which we saw last year. Virginia Tech could have had that opportunity, and then COVID kind of hit, and they were all like shaken up for a while. So I think this will be a good stretch for them.
Last question here for you before we wrap things up, David. Which teams in the ACC scare you the most out of this list? It's easy to sit here and say, the games that are going to be tough are going to be North Carolina. Of course, both Duke games are going to be tough. Virginia is probably going to have a good club. So I'd say this, out of these teams, and I think I have a top answer, would probably be Notre Dame, but I'm still going to give you the list. Out of Notre Dame, Virginia, Syracuse, Miami, and Wake Forest, who's scaring you the most? And I'd say probably Notre Dame.
I'd probably say Virginia.
Okay.
I think Notre Dame's probably second most. Did you say Miami on there?
Miami's on there, yep.
Virginia, Miami, and Notre Dame.
Isaiah Wong coming back is big.
Virginia, Miami, Notre Dame are all going to be really good.
Yeah.
I think those 3 teams and then Duke, Carolina, like those are going to be the other 5 teams Tech's competing with at the top of the ACC. Virginia, though, like that Virginia game,
it's fantastic.
Virginia Tech plays at Virginia on a Wednesday in January and then gets them at home on a Saturday in February. That Saturday game is going to be electric.
Just like last year. It was a Monday night last year, and that was the best crowd of the season.
Duke on a big Monday, that's going to be great. That road trip to Notre Dame, though, like that is...
That's a tough place to go play because it's not like close. Like going to UNC, Duke, Wake, those are close. Like,
yeah, you've got to...
Going to Syracuse, Louisville.
You're going to fly to South Bend. It's Virginia Tech has had... Mike Young has had Mike Bray's number the past couple years. Virginia Tech plays well against Notre Dame. But it's a one-off game. Virginia Tech only plays Notre Dame once every year, usually. So, like, Virginia Tech only got them once in the regular season last year.
That sparked the win streak.
And exactly. So I don't know. And then you got to play Miami twice, Duke twice, Virginia twice,
Syracuse twice.
Yeah, and I'm interested to kind of see where Syracuse is, but I think
I could confidently tell you they're not going to be that good. But
yeah, well, that's the thing. Like I don't know. Wake Forest is probably going to be around 8th, 9th, 10th. I don't think it's going to be the team we expected last year. You could throw Clemson in the mix, but who knows what PJ Hall is gonna look like? When he's gonna have a chance to come back. Florida State is the other one I think you might mention, but the Hokies get them at home on senior night. So I think it's a favorable schedule all in all.
It really is,
because there are games that there aren't too many tough road environments Virginia Tech has to go to. It's really just Miami, Duke, and Virginia. Maybe Notre Dame. You throw Notre Dame in the mix.
I mean, the Dome's always hard to play at. The weird
Virginia
thing about
Tech is not good at Syracuse.
The weird thing about the Dome, too, especially for a team that keys in on the three-point shot a lot with guys like Hunter Couture and so on and so forth, is that people don't realize how hard it is to shoot in the Dome because teams are not used to that spacious. The depth perception is so off because of how big it is and how far away the stands actually are compared to most arenas, so to speak. So like they say, when teams go to the Final Four, they practice, when the teams get their in-venue practices that week, they're keying in on jump shots.
Yeah.
So guys get used to that depth perception. And it's really the same effect in the Dome because you're playing in a football stadium. And a lot of teams, for whatever reason, struggle to shoot the three in the Dome, including Syracuse sometimes, especially early in the season. Syracuse always stinks in the Dome shooting from three. So just interesting.
Yeah.
Except Jalen Cone did not struggle in the Dome shooting from three.
And then again, I mean, I think this is a Virginia Tech team that it'll be tested for sure. I think we saw last year. How long does it take the team to gel? That's the bottom line. Does it take the start of the ACC season? You don't play well against North Carolina maybe, but you come out on all cylinders at Boston College. That Boston College game was a game Virginia Tech should have won last year. But playing in an empty Conti Forum, no energy. You got to bring your own. So that's tough. I think playing in the ACC is never easy. Virginia Tech though has it's a schedule that Mike Young I think will take and say, we can work with this.
We'll work with this. I think it's especially tough to get these guys to gel too when you got 4 transfers.
Yeah,
and probably at least 2 of which are going to see minutes on the court significantly. It's hard to get those guys to be put into a system that was, won an ACC championship in a tournament last year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you got Sean running the point. And then, when he's healthy again, where does Rodney Rice fit in? And yeah, every team faces that challenge every year, but it doesn't start overnight.
Yeah.
So, all right. Your final thoughts before we wrap things up?
I think Virginia Tech is going to have, I'm excited for the season opener. I think Virginia Tech is going to have a good year. The women's side too.
I think
I think they're gonna.
That's gonna get its own show.
Yeah,
that'll have its own.
They're gonna be so fun to watch.
I cannot. I'm honestly obviously Virginia Tech men's basketball has a bigger following. I think I might be more excited for women's basketball this year just because of how good they can be.
They're gonna be really good.
No doubt about it. All right, he's David Cunningham. I'm Giovanni Heater. We had Jack Brizendine on earlier. Thanks so much to Kyle Marshak behind the scenes producing for us today. This was TSL Today. Have a happy Halloween. Be safe out there tonight. We'll see you again on Wednesday.